Honorable Judge Emily Yapa now presiding.
Thank you. Everyone may be seated.
This is case number 28710, Young versus Gardner, on one count of negligence against Mr. Riley Gardner and one count of negligence against Mr. Tracy Gardner.
Thank you, Mr. Cordova. We will begin today with the opening statements. The prosecution will be first. You may proceed, counsel.
Thank you, Your Honor. Good morning, George and ladies and gentlemen of the jury. My name is Crystal Garcia, and I'm here today with my colleague, Mr. Moses de Luna. My client's name is Sidney Young, and we are representing the plaintiff in this case of Young versus Gardner. I would like to talk to you guys about an important day, a day where my client almost lost her life at the hands of the defendant, Mr. Riley Gardner. This accident happened on May 11, 2007, and it could have cost many people's lives. During the time of the crash was 1 a.m. 4 teenagers in the vehicle were traveling in a red Honda. As you can see here, this is the side where my client could have lost her life at the hands of the defendant. It was crashed harshly. The Youngs claimed the negligent supervision made by Mr. Riley Gardner and his father. The night of the accident, it was raining, and Mr. Riley Gardner was driving in a vehicle and crashed into a marine. He lost control of the vehicle, and then right after they crashed into a light pole. My client and her family are suing the Gardners for negligence. They want justice for their daughter. They want Mr. Riley Gardner's family to pay the medical bills that have cost my client and her parents money. The medical bills are out of the top because they cost so much money, and we want the defendant to pay for that because he was the one that caused all these serious injuries to my client, Mr. Young. She could have lost her life that day. There were multiple teenagers involved in the crash. Mr. Riley Gardner, Sidney Young, Javier Perez, and Alex Williams. My client, Ms. Young, was sitting in front of the passenger seat, and Javier Perez was sitting in the back seat. Alex Williams and Mr. Riley Gardner was the one driving the vehicle. It seems like he cared more about what was on his cell phone than his passenger safety. I would like to inform you, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, that there is a law in Minnesota that is called the hands-free law. It's a law that drivers must follow to be able to get the driver's license. It's a rule where you cannot use your phone while driving, and it's against the law to use your phone while driving. However, Mr. Riley Gardner was distracted with his cell phone instead of keeping his eyes on the road, and the result was an avoidable crash that injured my client, Miss Sidney Young. The day of the accident, my client, Miss Sidney Young, suffered many injuries in her lower leg, foot, chest, and right arm. We have witnesses who will be called up to the stand. The first witness that will be called up is my client, Miss Sidney Young. She'll talk about her side of the story and the accident. Another witness is Javier Perez. She will be talking about her side of the story of the crash, and she was sitting in the backseat of the car. Another witness will be Mr. Tracy Gardner. He is Mr. Gardner's father. He claims that he knew Mr. Riley Gardner was using his cell phone while driving. He was the one texting, and Mr. Gardner was the one texting Mr. Riley Gardner during the accident. During testimony, we will be hearing Mr. Gardner in a hostile witness, as we wanted to make sure that he is held accountable for providing the phone and car to Mr. Riley Gardner. At the end of this case, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, the case of Young versus Gardner. The Young's explanation should end through your verdict in this case. So many families could not have the same experience as the Youngs did. We advise that Mr. Riley Gardner will be found guilty due to negligence to my client, and hope you will award Miss Young the damage that will make this right and allow her to move on with her life. Thank you, Your Honor. Thank you.
Thank you, counsel. Defense counsel, you may now begin your opening statement.
Thank you, Your Honor. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Hayden Marshall. My colleague's name is Laisha. We represent the defendant in case Young versus Gardner. We expect a lack of evidence to show the accused Riley and Tracy Gardner are not guilty. This cause takes place on May 11, 2019 at 1:30 a.m. in a red Honda Accord. They were heading southbound on Wells National Gate Parkway. I just wanted to ask, how many of you have ever been in an accident? I personally have never been in an accident. I have seen many on TV, and my own father has been in one. He has no injuries though. What I'm trying to make is that we do not always have control over life. And that's the reason it's called a car accident, because it was not done on purpose. The point I'm trying to make is that Riley Gardner, my defendant, did not crash the car on purpose. He would never hurt his own friends. And all of his friends were in the car. And especially after a major victory in a sporting event, he would never do this. Thank you. Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you, counsel. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, we will now move into the evidentiary section of our trial. Please evaluate the evidence you hear carefully in order to come to a just decision. Counsel, you may now call out your first witness.
Your Honor, we'll call the first witness up to the stand, Mrs. Young.
Ms. Young, please come up to the witness stand and raise your right hand.
Remain standing. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes.
Please state your name and age for the record.
My name is Sydney Young, and then I'm 18 years old.
Tell us what happened on the evening of May 11th, 2019.
Well, it was Friday, and then I just came to town, to spend time with my cousin Javier. We went to a party after the soccer team won the regional championship, and everyone was pretty pumped. At some point, some guys decided to go get something to eat, and then Javier and I decided to go too. I had really hit it off with one of Javier's friend, Riley. He's cool, just like the other guys at my school. I sat at the front passenger seat in Riley's car, and Javier and Riley's friend Alex sat in the back.
Tell us what happened next.
Well, we were cruising along when Riley's phone rang. He looked at it, and then it must have been a text message because he says something he says something like Taylor's driving me crazy. He kept using his phone, not slowing down. It was raining and it was night, and the whole thing was not cool. It kind of made me kind of edgy. He later tossed the phone into my lap, or dropped it, right before the car crashed.
Tell us, what do you remember from the car crash?
Well, it was kind of like a fuzzy blur, but I remember we skid, and then slammed into a light pole in the Parkway median. Uh, the uh, the uh, the paramedics needed to pry me out of the car.
Please describe your injuries for us about the crash.
Well, I couldn't feel my right leg nor foot because they were crushed in the accident. I, I couldn't even clench my fist to pound on the car door to get out. At the ER, I was in so much pain that I could barely answer the doctor's questions. They told me that 3 ribs were broken, which explains why every breath was such a killer. Uh, they did surgery on me that night, and they put metal rods and pins on my right leg, which have to be replaced later. The whole thing was extremely painful.
Did you have any long-term consequences from the accident?
Well, the worst part is the pain in my back and legs. I could barely sit down for a whole class. I could barely sit down for a whole class period. So then college is out. I can't even get a desk job, let alone go to a movie or a game. My fingers go numb whenever I'm texting, typing, or 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 I'm playing video games. I was planning to be a commercial pilot, but that's out the window. I'm 18 and my whole life is messed up because Riley let some girl get under his skin instead of paying attention to the road and almost cost me my life. He might as well be banged up as I am.
Thank you, Mrs. Young. No further questions, Your Honor.
Does the defendant have any questions for this witness?
Yes, Your Honor. Ms. Young, what is your relationship to the defendant in this case?
He's a friend.
Okay. In your testimony, you said that he dropped your phone, or his phone, in your lap. Did he say anything to you while this happened?
No, not that I remember.
You also said that 2 cars had skidded before you.
Yes, that's true.
Thank you. No further questions.
Redirect.
Yes, we briefly. Ms. Young, how many seconds of the collision was Mr. Riley texting?
Well, it was right after, just like a couple of seconds.
Did you ever tell Mr. Gardner to stop texting?
Yes, but he played it off. I didn't want to press the point because he was already distracted, and then we were already in a bad driving situation.
Thank you, Sydney. No further questions, Your Honor.
Ms. Young, you may step down. Next witness, counsel.
Next, we would like to call up Ms. Javier Perez.
Ms. Perez, would you come up?
Remain standing and raise your right hand. You swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
I do.
Could you please describe to us what happened on the evening of May 11th, 2007? Please state your name and age for the record.
Javier Perez, I'm 17.
Now, may you please tell us what happened on the evening of May 11th, 2007?
My cousin Sid was visiting from out of state for the weekend. We ended up over at Austin's Crushers hanging out and playing pool. Around 10:30, we decided to go crushing for burgers. We piled into Riley's car. Riley was driving, and Sid was shotgun. Alex and I were in the back seat.
What happened next?
Well, as soon as we got out of the driveway, Riley got a text message from Taylor Bowling, and they were going back and forth. We were on a parkway, a 4-lane divided highway. The next thing I know, we were speeding. Riley must have slammed on the brakes and lost control of the car.
Then what happened?
The front passenger door must have hit the light pole in the median first, because the car was wrapped around it. Alex and I were able to get out, and so was Riley, but Sid's door was open out of shape. She was pinned inside and couldn't move. Somebody driving must have called 911 because in a few minutes the ambulance arrived. The paramedics got Sid out and took her to the hospital. The rest of us pretty much walked away with bruises, but Sid was in really bad shape.
Thank you, Ms. Perez. No further questions, Your Honor.
Any questions on cross-examination?
Yes, Your Honor. Ms. Perez, what is your relationship to the plaintiff in this case?
I'm her first cousin. Our mothers are sisters.
Is it true that you saw 2 cars get on the road at Parkway National Park?
Yes, that's true. All the more reason why Riley should have been paying more attention with both hands on the wheels and keeping the car under control.
No further questions, Your Honor.
Redirect.
No, Your Honor.
Ms. Perez, you may step down. Next witness, counsel.
Next, we would call Mr. Tracy Gardner.
Mr. Gardner, please come up to the stand and raise your right hand.
You swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
I do.
Please state your name and age for the record.
My name is Tracy Gardner, and I'm 46.
What is your relationship to Riley Gardner?
I'm his father.
Are you also a party in his lawsuit?
Yes, I'm being sued along with my son.
Are you testifying voluntarily for the plaintiff today?
No, your law firm served me with a subpoena requiring me to testify.
Your Honor, we would ask permission to treat Mr. Gardner as a hostile witness.
Granted.
Did your son Riley own a Honda Accord on May 11, 2019?
No, it was my car. But because he maintained a 3.5 grade average that I required and obeyed all my curfews, I'd sometimes let it use it in the afternoon and weekend nights.
Did he own a cell phone at this time?
Well, I paid for a phone bill. It's a family plan. He has a lot of exclusive uses on the phone, if that's what you mean.
Did he ever ride in the car while your son was driving?
Yes, quite often.
Did you ever witness him using the cell phone to send text messages while driving the vehicle?
Sometimes, but it's usually when we stopped in traffic.
Did you ever advise your son that doing so was dangerous?
Maybe a couple of times, but he was usually pretty careful.
Did you ever take steps to prevent this dangerous behavior?
That wasn't necessary. My son has grown up very quickly since his mother was killed in a car accident. He's taken driving very seriously, and he knows the consequences of being reckless. He is very responsible.
Was it responsible of him to text message while driving despite your multiple warnings?
I guess not, but as I said, I see him do it safely.
No more questions.
Defense counsel, do you have any questions for this witness? Yes, Your Honor. Miss Gardner, are you able to control your son's behavior?
No parent can guarantee that, especially since their kids are 17 or 18. But Riley has worked hard to earn my trust ever since his mother died, and I have full confidence in him.
No further questions. Redirect.
Mr. Gardner, isn't it true that you could have taken away Riley's cell phone or his car keys to underscore the importance of your warnings and to prevent him from trying to next while driving? Text.
Not really. Our family used the cell phone to stay in touch throughout the day. Things come up, and Riley needs the car for his after-school job. He comes home from school and helps out with his sister and their homework. When I get back home, we always have dinner together as a family. Then Riley drives off to his part-time job, and he's usually back. His curfew is at 10:30 p.m. on school nights. I already have him on plenty of tight leashes. He even started dating this year.
But isn't it true that you could have taken away the cell phone and car keys?
Well, I guess I suppose I could have, but
Thank you. No further questions.
You may step down, Mr. Gardner. Counsel, any other witnesses? You may call your first witness.
We call Mr. Riley Gardner.
Mr. Gardner, please come up to the witness stand.
Raise your right hand. You swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
Yes, sir.
Please state your name and age for the record.
My name is Riley Gardner, and I'm 18.
Could you tell us about yourself and your family?
I'm a high school senior now, and I live with my dad and my 3 younger sisters. I'll watch my sisters after school until my dad gets home from work. Then I go to my job and get back around 10 p.m. I do homework and then go to bed. My mom died in a car accident about 6 years ago, so it's just the 5 of us at home.
Tell us what happened on the evening of May 11th, 2007.
Well, our soccer team had just won regionals, and Dad let me have the car. So my next door neighbor, Alex Williams, and I picked up a friend, Javier, and his cousin Sid, and we all went to a party. I promised to meet Taylor Bowling, another friend of mine, for coffee later at the Wireless Cafe. I figured she'd be doing homework there like usual, and I wouldn't care when I showed up.
What happened at the party?
We played pool and hung out, and at one point, a couple of us decided to go get something to eat at Chandler's. So Javier, his cousin, and Sid, and my friend Alex were in my car. And then we were on the parkway when my cell rang with a text message from Taylor, and it said, ADNCB now.
What did you understand this to mean?
That meant any day now, call back now, in all caps. The message was serious. It was like she was yelling. And she was driving me crazy. She knew I needed some space to be with my friends, and that we were going to meet up later.
What did you do then?
I texted her back soon, but a minute later, my cell rings again, and she's texting now, in all caps. I'd had it. It was late and raining, so I just hit reply, and then I tossed the phone to Sid and asked him to type NCWD, which means no texting while driving. I wanted Taylor to get the picture that I'd be in touch with her as soon as I could.
What happened after that?
Next thing I knew, the car was skidding out of control and hits a pole. I'm very sorry about Sid getting hurt, but I know her and her parents, Javier, will always blame me for everything, but I don't really think it was my fault. That's why they call them accidents. The road was slippery, and actually we saw several cars that skidded out of control that night.
Nothing further, Your Honor.
Counsel?
Yes, Your Honor. Mr. Gardner, how many times in your life would you estimate that you sent a text messages while operating a motor vehicle?
I have no idea.
Would it be fair to say that you've at least sent 100 text messages while operating a vehicle?
I don't keep count, but yeah, that's probably true. I've got a lot going on. It's not a big deal because I can text without looking down at the phone.
Is it true, Mr. Gardner, that texting requires glancing at the keyboard and screen for the most users?
Well, yeah, but I can glance down and back really quick.
Did your father ever see you texting while driving?
Maybe a few times.
Did he approve of it?
He just said that I should focus on the road.
Mr. Gardner, you just admitted you probably sent more than 100 text messages while driving. I remind you that you're under oath. Do you expect us to believe that right before the accident in questioning, you asked Ms. Sid, whom you just met, to intervene in an argument with your girlfriend and text messages not and TWD, not texting while driving?
Objection, Your Honor.
I withdraw the question, Your Honor.
Yes,
No further
Your-
nothing further.
Any redirect?
Yes, Your Honor. Mr. Gardner, were you sending a text message at the time the vehicle collided with the light pole?
No, I was not. By then, I already tossed Sid the phone.
Thank you. No more questions.
Mr. Gardner, you may step down. Defense counsel, your next witness.
The defense counsel would call Alex Williams to the stand.
Raise your right hand. Be sure to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
Yes.
Please state your name, age for the record.
Alex Williams, and I'm 17.
Where were you in the evening of May 11, 2007?
I was playing pool at Austin Coach Crosher's house with Riley, Javier, and his cousin Sid. Around 10:30 or so, we headed over to Chandler's and Riley's car to get something to eat. Sid was up there, up in front with Riley. Javier and I were in the back seat.
Then what happened?
Riley was texting something to Taylor Bowling. He was dating her, and I guess she was getting clingy, calling and texting him a lot. She and I used to be friends, and she tends to smother guys. The road was slick, and Riley saw a couple cars on the side of the road. He threw his phone to Sid and asked her to text him, to text Taylor for him. Riley is actually a safe driver. We go a lot of places together.
What happened next?
Well, everything seemed to go into slow motion. We skid across toward the median, and there was a terrible sound with a car. When we crashed, I never forgot the horrific sound. The next thing I knew, Sydney was yelling about her hand and her leg. Javier and Riley and I managed to get out the car. Then we all tried to get Sydney out. Sydney looked pretty messed up.
Thank you. No further questions.
Cross.
Yes, Your Honor. Is it fair to say that because you were in the back seat, you couldn't see everything that actually happened in that accident?
Well, things did happen pretty fast, but I know the crash was because of Riley texting, because he handed the phone off to Sid before that.
How long have you known Riley Gardner?
Since first grade, we were next door neighbors.
Is it fair to say that you are good enough friends that you would do just about anything to help him?
Absolutely, we're tight. We always say we got each other's backs.
Would you be willing to lie under oath to protect him?
Objection, Your Honor.
Overruled. The witness will answer the question.
No, I wouldn't do that.
We have nothing further, Your Honor.
Any redirect?
No, Your Honor. The defense rests.
Okay, the witness may step down. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, we're going to take a short break, and when we return, we will hear the parties' closing arguments. I will then provide you with some instructions on the relevant law and how you should conduct your deliberations. The court stands in recess.
You guys can talk to each other. Sure, if you'd like to, for a few minutes here, we can take your closing arguments settled.
Minus 4 pages.
All come to order for Judge Emily Yapa.
Ladies and gentlemen, we will now hear our closing argument. Defense counsel will go first. The floor is yours, counsel.
Thank you, Your Honor, and thank you, ladies and gentlemen of the jury. In this case, our defendant, Riley Gardner, is accused of negligence by the plaintiff, Sidney Young. The prosecution is mainly attacking Mr. Gardner because he was texting. Though it is true that Mr. Gardner was texting, he had already tossed his phone to the plaintiff, Ms. Young, before the crash took place. Ms. Young also seemed very worried about the events that took place, for she was like fuzzy blur, and I don't know. This questions the validity of her statements. Ms. Young's accident was unfortunate, and Mr. Gardner sympathizes with her. However, what the defense wants you to know is that the misfortunate accident was a result of bad weather and was out of Mr. Riley's control. Ms. Sidney Young answers the statement seems to be very hesitant and doubtful, using words like fuzzy blur and I don't know. This shows that she is unclear of what happened in the moments before the crash. This makes us believe that she is not 100% sure of the events. This also makes us assume that she somehow was not able to completely understand what happened. Ms. Young also seems to question what happened and still decides to attack Mr. Riley Gardner for negligence. Ms. Young does not have all the events down and is only assuming that some things happened, making Mr. Gardner liable. In no case would Mr. Riley Gardner ever intend to hurt his friends or anyone he had just met. Ms. Javier Perez also used vocabulary that makes us assume that she too is uncertain of the events leading up to the accident. As Ms. Riley's cousin, it is an instinct to try to protect her. However, using such a powerful claim, and then when asked about the accident, he replied saying, Riley Gardner must have slammed on the brakes. She is using vocabulary of someone who is assuming he must have. And this should tell everyone, including the jury, that Ms. Perez is also assuming for the sake of her cousin. However, this does not seem surprising because he was sitting in the back and might not have seen everything that took place. It also seems that both Sidney and Javier Perez are not 100% sure of what took place before and what proceeded when the accident took place. Mr. Riley Gardner and his father are accused of negligence, as claimed by the Youngs. They claim that Mr. Gardner had been texting while driving, and as a result, the accident occurred. However, Riley Gardner had already tossed his phone to Sidney before the crash, so texting on the phone was not the reason that the accident occurred. Riley had gotten a text message from his girlfriend, Taylor. She texted him in all caps, ABN, CB now, which translates to any day now, call back now. As you can see, this text message seemed urgent. Riley then tossed his phone to Sydney. Was before the crash took place. It seemed this is before he even told Miss Young to text back NTWD. This translates to no texting while driving. From his actions, we can tell that he sees the importance of driving safely. Mr. Gardner was not on the phone at the time of the crash. If we were to check the time the text messages were sent, we would see that they were sent before the accident. This piece of evidence proves that this accident was not due to negligence for Mr. Riley Gardner and Mr. Tracy Gardner. I am sure that Mr. Riley Gardner was aware of the damages that could come with texting and driving. He is old enough to know the difference between right and wrong at the age of 18. Mr. Tracy Gardner did what a parent should do. He warned his child about the safety problems that come with texting while driving. Is that really negligence? He is not able to supervise his son at all times and make sure he never does it. Even though he warned his son not to do it after watching it take place, his son still texted while driving, although it did not cause any harm in this accident. What more could he have done? As we saw from Mr. Tracy Gardner's statement, we know that taking his phone or their car would be a problem. Mr. Riley Gardner would and needs his car to get home and to work. His phone is needed to communicate with his mother and make sure everything is okay. He needs his car to make sure he makes it home at time to take care of his sisters. Mr. Riley Gardner did everything he could to make his son safe and others are safe. He warned him using the example of Mr. Riley's late mother and the lifelong consequences that come. However, this is all a parent can do to make sure that they do the right thing. This is why Mr. Riley Gardner tossed his phone to Miss Riley Gardner. Even if he didn't know her, it was because of his father's warnings. However, the incident could not be avoided even if he were warned. The cause of the accident in the end was poor conditions. The night the accident took place, it was raining quite hard. The roads were dangerous and prone to accidents. We were told by Javier that there had been 2 other cars that had gotten into an accident. This further proves the environment that the car accident happened in. This brings us to conclude that the accident happened due to the bad weather and the slippery roads. It is wrong for Mr. Riley to even text. However, the accident did not happen because he was texting. In no way did Mr. Riley Gardner intend to crash and hurt Sydney or any of the other passengers. Riley does take lessons from this experience and will make sure he never texts while driving. However, accusing him of negligence in causing a car crash is not true. He was texting while the crash. He was not texting while the car crash occurred. It was due to the weather and the fact that Sydney Young could accuse him of this fault is just wrong. He tends to crash. He never intended to crash with his friends or put his friends in danger. I hope you all see through the sympathy that Riley has towards Sydney, even though Sydney despises him. Yet the accident was not his fault, and the only thing to blame was the weather. So all this information, I hope our jury can conclude that Mr. Riley Gardner was not negligent because he was texting while driving. His father would not even be involved or be sued, should not even be involved or being sued because he did everything a parent should be doing. Texting was not the cause of the crash, yet Mr. Riley Gardner apologizes for even putting his passenger's life in danger. Riley, after texting he has decided that texting is not worth another life, and he gave his phone to Sydney. I hope you all understand the emotional connection Riley had with car accidents. He understands the effects it has on families and how quick to catch his mistake. I hope you all understand that the accident was unfortunate and caused a lot of harm to the plaintiff. However, it is all due to the unfortunate bad weather. The defense requests that the jury conclude that the defendant was not guilty of negligence. I hope you conclude with all the evidence we have provided. Again, we sympathize with the plaintiff and her family, but at the expense of an innocent young man, but not on the expense of an innocent young man. Thank you, Your Honor, and thank you for your time, ladies and gentlemen of the jury.
Thank you, counsel. The counsel for the prosecution will now give their closing argument.
Thank you, Your Honor. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, day of May 11, 2019, at approximately 10:30, Ms. Sydney Young was involved in a car accident. This led to her getting severe injuries, mostly on her legs. This accident could have been so much more severe regarding injuries. Ms. Sydney Young had to receive a large amount of treatment, and she spent countless days in the hospital. Mr. Riley Gardner was the only person who was behind the wheel of the vehicle. He was the one responsible for controlling the car in a responsible manner. Of course, did not do so. He was responsible for all the injuries that all the people in the vehicle suffered. That fateful day that the car accident occurred, it was supposedly raining and the roads were slippery. This is not a reason why Mr. Garner should not be blamed. It is the other way around. Mr. Tracy Garner should have been even more careful, and even more aware of his surroundings, since there is a greater risk of a car accident in bad weather. Mr. Tracy Garner was supposedly told by one of his guardians that he should be mindful and not text and drive, believe it or not. While Mr. Perez was giving his testimony, he claimed that Mr. Tracy Garner had seen 2 car crashes right in front of him. With this said, I feel like he should have been even more careful about a car accident occurring rather than being careless and staring at your smartphone. No one should even think about texting whenever they're driving a vehicle or doing something that could be fatal without full concentration at all times. Mr. Riley Garner's guardian had claimed to have told him about the dangers. He chose to ignore this advice and started texting while driving anyway. As a result of this, Miss Sydney Young, this is the exact reason why people get fined by law enforcement whenever they get found texting and driving. Keep in mind that things could have been so much worse. It could have been fatal or killed someone. Also, keep in mind that more people could have been severely injured. Mr. Tracy Garner was driving on a 4-lane highway. Not only did the teens in that vehicle get injured, but since they were on a highway, Mr. Tracy Garner could have collided with another vehicle, causing damages to someone else's car, or even worse. Mr. Tracy could have injured or even killed more people while texting and driving. These are all the major reasons why Mr. Tracy Garner is guilty, and his parents should be able to pay for the medical injuries and trauma that Ms. Sydney Young has suffered. All of this could have been prevented by just focusing on driving the vehicle. This is why my plaintiff is asking for $50,000 in damages for Mrs. Sydney Young's terrible injuries. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, Ms. Sydney Young's life has never been altered, has been altered forever by this traumatic event. Ms. Sydney Young has suffered countless days in the hospital, and thousands of dollars have been spent trying to pay for her medical bills. All of these things were caused by Mr. Tracy Garner, sitting right in that exact spot. Consider and think carefully about how traumatizing and painful this event would be. This is why Mr. Tracy Garner is guilty of negligence because of his lack of duty. Thank you, Your Honor, and thank you, ladies and gentlemen of the jury.
Thank you, counsel. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, the case is now in your hands. You have heard all the evidence, and I trust that you will come to a just decision. Remember, you must come to a unanimous decision, or I will declare a hung jury. If you find the defendant not guilty, there will be no damages awarded. Should you find the defendant guilty, you must supply me with the amount of money you wish to award the plaintiff. With that, I remand you to the jury room to discuss the case and come to a decision. The court stands in recess.
You guys can relax a little bit, stand up and stretch if you like, just drop, take a little distance. Hayden, you really did have a belt. Yeah. some of it is scripted from before, and then, but they like wrote their own opening statement, closing argument, and, you know, they work on kind of, you know, the emotion they want to do with the questions, they kind of want to do all of that, so, yeah, so they do a really good job. Yeah.
My first one question is, when an applicant was asking for the driver slow down.
Oh, that's, yeah, exactly. That's true, yeah. Was he speeding, or did he
Yeah,
slow
well,
down,
it's
or
the,
was it?
you've seen two accidents, did you slow down then?
Correct, yeah. Yep, nope, that's a good point.
But if you didn't, that means you're not reacting.
I wasn't I'm being paid by.
Don't say anything to me, I wasn't the one saying it, right, yeah.
Sorry,
Yeah, no, that is a good point, because, yeah, if you've seen it and you don't slow down, all the more reason you'd be negligent, because you should have known that, you know, and there goes your argument then that the weather caused the crash, if you were speeding anyway, when you knew the weather was bad, yeah.
sorry, I do a conference.
can't blame it on your mom. You were going through emotional trauma during the crash.
So they want $50,000 from Riley's parents. I'm like, that's
Yeah,
Yeah,
$50,000.
When they say the verdict.
Wait, if you only have one parent, isn't it only like half the amount of money?
No, because
By the way, William, you're not going to college anymore.
No,
If
I'm getting
I
both of them
if I
paid.
get, like super, like, I have, that's too much money for me.
no, you're not gonna get
We can just
Can we
use that
both
main royalty and
It's
move
not
all your
guilty,
money
I'm
on.
gonna break your
No,
leg.
You
they
skipped
sell
the
them.
line.
What?
You skipped the line.
I know.
And you were talking to the jury.
Yeah,
Wait, I wasn't given any objection.
No, I'm talking about like when you
Oh,
weren't
okay.
supposed to.
My lines
you
were
weren't supposed
altered.
to talk to the jury.
She missed the
You
line
like
too.
my-
She forgot to say, please say your name and your name for the record.
Mr.
And then I'm right here, she's like, what happened on the night?
Yeah,
I'm
that's
right
why
here,
I
forgot
Mr.
my
Stop
line.
too.
Are you mad at me?
Yeah, you like,
I didn't
were attacking me so
like,
far.
I
I looked at you and I was like glaring at you.
And I only saw like 3 words, so I didn't know what was going on. And I asked Mr. Boyle, and he's like,
No, you said he was
Okay.
texting his mom and his dad.
You can sue your girlfriend.
I said
What?
girlfriend.
You can say,
But you
if
said
you get
yeah,
checked,
are you dating Taylor Swift?
you can sue your girlfriend.
See, they're bowling.
Isn't it kind of like Javier and
You
Sydney's
said
fault
bowling.
for not telling me anything? They just sat there and watched, like just.
You can sue your girlfriend. Like, get it back, 'cause she caused the
Just
accident.
had a couple more minutes, they're gonna be ready here.
Can he sue his girlfriend? Because she actually caused
Exactly.
the accident.
Plus, it's like Javier and Sydney's fault because they saw what was happening, but they didn't do anything. They just. I'm just gonna take this car crash.
There's a lot of blaming going on here, isn't there?
Even though your legs broke,
There's a lot of,
And when that money come in, it's
Oh,
different.
there's a lot of blaming going on.
This is the best thing I could have come, just like to argue.
That was, you know, you weren't being
You know what, my
I'm not even saying that.
You're not?
Glad it feels good.
Are we still live?
Yes,
Are the cameras on?
yes.
Hi, future me.
That's not the camera that's on, but sure.
It's over there.
Oh!
All right, let's take a seat here, guys. You're gonna be ready here in a second, okay? They should, I think they're gonna be ready here in a second.
The camera that wasn't on.
I wrote, will you go check on one of the library?
I think you're gonna be found guilty. So let's-
Oh, by the way, if you're found guilty, we'll be split, so, you know, like, we don't care.
Right now, I'm playing 100.
Are you ready to jump up excited or cry?
I hope we, I feel like you're not gonna win. We're gonna find
Be like a
Wait,
little-
can I?
You're not?
Can I
No, I
laugh?
feel like they're.
Can I laugh at her if she loses?
Not
What's
good.
that?
In case you
I'll
laugh
laugh
at
at
her.
her.
Can you go up and start pointing his finger at her?
Or can I?
We'll just go.
Court will come to order.
Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, have you reached a verdict?
We have, Your Honor.
In the case of Young versus Gardner, the counsel negligence, how do you find?
Your Honor, we find the defendant guilty.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, for your time. This court is hereby adjourned.
A beautiful job, Ace, right here. Beautiful job. Well done. Well done. Well done. Well done. Well done.
Yes.
Well done. Sydney got paid.
She got her money. Well, she got her money.
Sydney got paid.